Welcome to the Relentless Minds podcast with Lori Jimenez, a platform where influential entrepreneurs get real and share their stories of challenges in life that they've had to face head on and conquer in order to be where they are today. Here, you'll get an inside look at the adversities that these individuals have experienced or are currently dealing with, in addition to their opinions on real life matters and philosophies in life. Most importantly, you'll learn what it takes to have a relentless mind so that you too can stay headstrong in your pursuit of a better future. In this podcast, you're going to get 100% authenticity from people that have figured out how to beat the noise that society creates and have a higher level of self-mastery. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Relentless Minds podcast. Today I have with me Daisy Torres. Daisy faced a very difficult challenge early on in life. She became a mother at the young age of 16. Coming from a family that worked very hard to make ends meet, Daisy was devastated that she might not be able to get ahead in life and pursue the career she had always dreamt of, that of becoming an architect. Today, Daisy shares her story of her early life and humble beginnings, the experience she went through being a teenage mom, and how she beat the statistics for teenage moms getting a formal education and worked very hard to get herself through school and achieve her dream. Hi, Daisy. How are you today?
Good. Thank you, Lori. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'm so happy you're going to be here today to share your story about how you beat the statistic of women or young women that become teenage mothers and getting their formal education, getting their life together, getting a great career. And you did all of this for yourself and for your daughter. And for that, I admire you. And I'm so happy you're going to tell us how you were able to manage that.
Oh, thank you so much. It actually, to be honest with you, was very hard for me for a long time to kind of share my story with others. And, I used to almost be ashamed of that past. And, I've definitely surpassed that now. And I see that actually sharing my story with others could inspire other young women to see that, this can be done. So that's why I'm very happy to be able to be here today and just talk about it.
Yeah, that's perfect. And it's true. It's absolutely true. Because the things that are kept in silence are many times the things that need to be heard, that people need to hear. So I want to start by just having you tell us about the beginning, like your family, your life. I know that you were raised first in North Miami, right?
Correct.
And so how was that family setting back then?
So both my parents were first immigrants here in the States. They moved from Costa Rica at a very young age. My dad moved here when he was like 16, 17 years old. He moved to a predominantly Hispanic community. So it was very challenging for him to learn English and just kind of integrate into American life. So my parents got married very young. I believe my parents, I think they were like 19 years old at the time, and they had us very young. So, it was very challenging for them to go to college. My dad got into the roofing industry, and he has been actually still working as a roofer for the last 30 plus years. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom. We didn't have any luxuries, but my parents felt at the time that it was important for my mom to be home, and they also couldn't afford, childcare costs and things like that. So it was kind of a, bit of a sacrifice for my mom to be home, but I think at the moment, they thought that was kind of the best decision for them. So we grew up in North Miami in a humble, like 2-bedroom home. I have a younger brother and an older sister. So the three of us would share one bedroom. And, we didn't have any luxuries. My parents, made a lot of sacrifices for us growing up. I would recall my parents buying their clothes at the thrift shop to be able to have enough money to buy us our clothes for the year for school. Just things of that nature, right? We would take like maybe one vacation a year, and that would be always to go to Costa Rica to visit family. So, it was, we grew up always learning that, money was an issue, it
Yep.
was scarce, and that my parents had to make sacrifices for us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so in that, they also always ingrained the importance of getting an education.
Yeah.
They felt that, it's so important for you to finish college and be self-sustainable and be independent, and not go through these financial restraints that
Mm-hmm.
they went through,
Yeah.
and sacrifices they had to go through to give us a better life.
Mm-hmm. You had
So
very, very humble beginnings.
yeah, so in that, my dad's industry, I guess at the time when I was like 10 or 11, when it went scarce, and he was worried that he could no longer continue, paying for the mortgage and giving us the things that he felt were important.
Mm-hmm.
They had made sacrifices to put us in a small little private school in the neighborhood, um, and they couldn't barely afford that.
Mm-hmm.
So
That shows how much they really cared, though. The private school, like
yeah,
that is higher level education that you're receiving. And a lot of people that just even have, like regular 9 to 5 jobs, they're not getting that. They're not getting that education, or like their children aren't getting that education. But
hmm
your parents valued that much.
absolutely. And
Incredible.
they valued it so that they obviously sacrificed a lot of other areas in order to put us in that school. And so it was getting to a point where he wasn't getting enough work, and he was worried that he was no longer going to be able to provide for us in that way. We were also getting older. My sister was going to high school, and that tuition would have been even more expensive. And they also didn't know how to tap into resources, like
How
i
so?
I felt like my parents, looking back, they probably were afraid of expressing themselves, and they were like, they had a language barrier, and the language barrier, I think, limited them to be able to go out there and find like scholarships or some other sort of
Yes.
resources that maybe could have helped us.
Organizations that are helping the
Yeah,
minorities. Yeah.
exactly. So I think a lot of times we just don't know that these things exist, or we don't know how to tap into them.
Exactly.
And so I think at that point they felt very alone. They didn't have the resources, they didn't have the support. And my dad felt the best thing for them to do was to relocate back to Costa Rica.
Yeah. So you were at this point
I was
in
like 12
seventh
years,
grade.
yeah, in seventh grade.
In
I was,
seventh grade, and you got this news about going back.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, up until this point, when it comes to the struggle that you are seeing every single day of your parents trying to provide, trying to, create a comfortable setting as much as possible. How do you think this affected you, like mentally, like at this early age? Like, what were you thinking?
I was always thinking, I want better. I want to be able to, mainly not for myself. It was mainly for them. I felt like I needed to get ahead in life to be able to help my parents, to be able to tell my dad, hey, dad, you don't need to work in the roof anymore. Like he works like 8-hour days in the roof, and he's still doing
Wow.
it today.
And it's a
You know,
dangerous job too.
it is actually my uncle that did the same line of work, and he fell from a roof and was paralyzed.
Oh no.
So yeah, it
Wow.
is a dangerous job. It is a hard job to be out in the Miami hot sun 8 hours a day.
Mm.
I don't know how he did it all these years,
He did it for
and
you guys.
he did it for us. So
Yeah.
it's, when I
Wow,
think
that's
about it, it's
incredible.
very emotional to see what
Absolutely.
parents do for their children.
Yes. It's incredible. And
So
I actually admire, when I was listening to your story on your speech and mic drop, um very similar stories. I can relate to a lot of the things that you were saying, because of the um being in, like, having one room, like you're renting out. Like I was also, like, with my mom and my sisters, like in one
mhm.
room. Like it's just things that make you stronger, things that show you from a young age what hard work is, what
Mm-hmm.
life is all about. And, it was kind of in a way things that helped to give you that strength with what you were about to be presented with later on in life.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
your family, your parents decided that the best decision was to move to Costa Rica. Why was that, and how did you take it?
Well, we didn't take it well. I mean, they didn't ask us. It's something that obviously we were at the time, I was 12, 13 years old. My brother was, maybe like 6, and my sister was just a year older than me. So, they had already discussed this between themselves, and they felt that was the right decision for us. And I remember when they sat us down and they told us what they had decided, and we were just in disbelief. I mean, the first thing I thought about was my friends, my environment, the language, because even though we spoke to my parents in Spanish, it was a very broken Spanish. It wasn't, we didn't really know how to read it and write it properly. And we had gone to Costa Rica on occasions, on vacation, and that was very fun. But living there was a completely different situation, and I mean, it is a third world country, and we weren't used to the culture, and living in that environment full time.
Yeah.
So, it's not like we went over there and actually had a better lifestyle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, because your parents, they were teaching you these lessons of when you were younger, so working hard, get a good education, get ahead in life. But then moving to third world country, you'd think the opposite would happen, right? So,
Yeah, and it didn't. It was a lot harder because my dad, I guess in his mind, he would be working in the States and then be able to send money to us for my mom to be able to live
gotcha.
comfortably in Costa Rica. So we used to have a very united family. And then all of a sudden we were living completely separate, right?
Separate.
From my dad, and my
Yes.
mom was taking care of the household
Gotcha.
100%. And
Yes.
so I could see their struggle, with their marriage, my mom having to take care of the entire like responsibility for the three of us. And then my dad coming every 3 months for a couple of weeks and then going
Wow.
back,
Yes.
So he always envisioned that he would save enough money to start a business in Costa Rica, and that never happened, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see how it actually affected us as a family, and
Yeah.
and then it also affected us. I mean, the financial situation did not get resolved. It was still present,
It was still a struggle. So how was life in Costa Rica, and what were some of these challenges that you faced, like with, because you weren't reading, you couldn't read or write in Spanish, you could speak it, but going to school and now you're having to keep up with that level of education. Like, how was all this experience, like your friends?
Oh, that was very, very rough. And we had a lot of resentment. Like we didn't want to adapt to life, right? We are these young teenagers, upset about the moving situation, upset about leaving our friends, everything that we knew was our life behind. And here we were resisting to change. Um, you know, I remember every time they'd sing the national anthem, I would be like, "No, this is not my country," and I would refuse to sing it, like when I first moved there, I was just so angry. I was angry at my parents. I was angry at life. I was like, "This isn't fair," you know.
And you were 12 at this
Yeah,
time? Okay.
yeah, I was 12, 13. I think I was, yeah, between 12, 13 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I we didn't have a period to adjust. We literally had to start school, right after moving. And my parents couldn't afford to put us in an all English school. So we had to go to an all Spanish school. And they didn't have any transition or special program, how they do here in the States, that you have a language, maybe like some sort of
Yes,
remedial course.
immersion classes or something.
Yeah, none of that exists over there.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to hire like a tutor. I had to like get help, to learn Spanish properly. And The friends that I met at school always thought I talked funny because of my accent,
Yes.
right? And
Your American accent.
yeah, so it's funny because I had some kids were like really cool, like, oh, she's American, how cool, and they'd want to be my friends, and other people were like, oh, she's American, like I don't want to talk to her,
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes
So
they think we think we're better.
yeah, that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a little bit of a challenge. I was very close to failing eighth grade when I got there. And luckily, they gave you an opportunity to retake some exams at the end of the school year. And had to study the entire summer. And I had to literally, see a Spanish tutor and see a math tutor and and study civics and social studies, because that was another thing. I didn't know any of the history of the country, so I had to learn all of that,
Goodness.
and luckily I was able to pass those exams, those final exams, and get my door into ninth grade. But my sister wasn't so fortunate, and unfortunately she failed the school year, and so she was a year ahead of me. And then when she failed, we were
Okay.
both in the same
In the same year.
grade.
Yes.
And for a long time, she resented that. She didn't like that. She felt it discouraged her.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Because she's trying to set an example, I'm sure, as an older sister.
oh yeah, and like who wants to fail
Yeah.
a grade,
Yeah.
And with all those obstacles and all these challenges that we're going through, I mean, it was just another layer of, you know,
Absolutely. Well,
at,
the thing is that also, like, since you guys had been raised from a young age, like prioritizing education, right? And how that
mhm,
is kind of like a bit of, it's like you're kind of like a bit of your worth is in that education and how
mhm,
far you get ahead. So I can understand these challenges that you were going through where you were feeling incompetent in a
absolutely,
world just
yeah,
because you were thrown in something without preparation, right? How that
mhm,
could have made you could have just made you feel, oh, you just, bad.
yeah, and like
Bad.
powerless,
Powerless.
yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, like what more could we go through? I mean, this is already like enough, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was hard to see my sister go through that. That was rough. I know that for many years that she had, that was something that she carried,
Carried with it.
and that, thank God she's over that. But I know at the time it was a struggle for her.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So
so, so yeah, that was a really challenging part also
how
of
did you
moving
guys
there.
all cope in your own ways? How did you guys find some sort of release, some sort of, you know, just comfort
You
in
know,
dealing with this?
my sister and I, because my mom then started working in Costa Rica, we had a lot more time to ourselves. So we started just misbehaving. We started like going out and sneaking out, and you know, we um, we started getting boyfriends, and just the fact that I had a boy be interested in me at the time, I felt really good, and I had always been like a little tomboy growing up, and when I was younger, I needed braces, so I got made fun of a lot, and my parents couldn't afford braces for me when I was younger, so
Mm-hmm.
just the fact that a boy was interested in me
Yeah.
just made me feel good.
Yeah.
It brought my self-esteem up. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like I could identify with someone in Costa Rica,
Mm-hmm.
and like I had some sort of refuge, in having a
And
boyfriend.
having a
So
boyfriend.
my sister did the same thing. So we both just really, I don't think we conscientiously did it to hurt my mother, but I think subconsciously we were acting up, and we were, doing whatever we wanted to do on the side, just just to kind of say like screw it, like screw you, you guys put us in the situation, um, and we're gonna just do
This,
what we want to
like,
do.
this is how we are dealing with it, basically.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
so I know that you were dating for some time, and then something really intense happened. You missed your period. You were late. So
Yes.
can you talk about that situation, that experience?
So when that occurred, I was in denial. I was like, this is just a scare. I mean, I'd had a scare before, like that you
Okay.
think you are and you're not. And so when initially I found out that I had missed my period, I thought that it was temporary, that, it wasn't really going to happen. So I think in that age, we think that these things really can't happen to
Yeah,
us.
you think you're untouchable.
Yeah, yeah. Or
Yes.
we're like, oh, it happens to other people, but it's not going to happen to me, you know? Like, I do have to say that I was reckless. I wasn't like responsible. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't taking any contraceptive pills. And it's not because my mom didn't talk to me about it. Sometimes people say, oh, well, probably her parents weren't open with her about sex and, taking precautions. And that's not true. My mom had conversations about it.
Okay.
But at the time, I felt that if I told her that I needed to get pills, that
Mm-hmm.
she would restrict me from going out.
Gotcha. So you
So,
were 16 at this time. You were dating your boyfriend at 15, 16,
correct.
right? And
Yep.
your parents knew that you had a boyfriend.
Yes.
And obviously they knew that there was a possibility there of intercourse. So they were having these conversations with you. As opposed to, I know many families, my family involved it's like a taboo subject.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's like everything under the radar. Nobody speaks about that subject. So the fact that they were telling you that's a good start. That's a good sign, but I'm glad that you had that. But then, yeah, so you had your missed period and then so were saying it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
And
Obviously, the
then,
weeks passed by, and the more week time passed by, the more I realized that this could be. And so I went with my boyfriend to a clinic very close to my house, and I said we need to get a blood exam just to be 100% sure. And when when we did that, um, it was obviously a very tough moment for me because I knew I couldn't escape the reality anymore. I couldn't like avoid it. I immediately thought about my parents and how I was going to break that news to them, and then how I was going to disappoint them. And
yeah.
that to me was really the hardest part, to be able to tell them what was going on and see their disappointment, because that's immediately the first thing I thought of, not being able to kind of fulfill um, my goals and my dreams of, finishing college and being this like great profession, having this great profession.
So in that moment when you found out you were pregnant and you got that card, you were feeling fear and sadness because of the disappointment you knew. What other thoughts were going through your head when you found out,
Oh,
like within yourself, and other things about maybe your upbringing? What other thoughts were going through your head?
well, I was disappointed in myself. I was like, how could I not have taken care of myself better or made better choice? What's going to happen with my high school? How am I going to be? I couldn't even like understand just the whole, you know, being pregnant, and I was even scared of that, like being pregnant and giving birth. I mean, I couldn't even imagine that. And and then I also thought about other options, like all these things were just going in my head, and then about my boyfriend and what he wants and what am I going to do about this relationship and what am I going to do about the
Hmm.
pregnancy,
Yeah.
am I going to keep the baby, am I going to, but
That
it was just too much to even like understand. I couldn't even comprehend what I was getting
that's
myself into.
that's a lot to deal with being 16 years old.
Yeah.
So in that moment, because this is the question of all time for women that find out they're pregnant especially in teenage years, were you considering abortion at that point?
Absolutely. I was, because if they just, the little I knew about abortion, obviously I wasn't like fully engaging in like what abortion was or the procedures or anything like that. At that age, you're not really, exposed to that information. But I immediately thought of that being an alternate solution that could get my life back in place.
So you, at that time, didn't think it would be possible to have the baby and to still get your dream
No,
of being an architect. You didn't think you could do both.
no. I mean, I first of all, everything that I knew about in society about how women were treated that were pregnant was, oh, this girl's life is over. Or it was just frowned upon. There was nobody says, oh, wonderful news. You're 16 and you're pregnant. Like nobody says that, So yeah, I was worried about how society was going to treat me. I was worried about my family, about my friends, what everything. And I know that now in life, we shouldn't be worried about what people think about you. But at that time, when you're 16 years old,
Yes,
that plays a big influence. What
it
your family
matters.
thinks about you, what your friends think about you, how society treats you.
Yeah, no, definitely. It matters because not only is it more of like a mental and emotional thing, but it's also of like, where's the support going to be? Right. So
Exactly.
if the friends are not thinking well about you or society isn't and the neighbor isn't, then the support is probably not going to be there, you know?
Exactly. So I think unintentionally, that lack of support and lack of hey, encouragement, it kind of puts us into that avenue of this is not possible. This is
Yeah.
frowned upon. This is negative. Like, this is not something that I should be doing.
Yeah. And if there's so much talk and opinions on how this one detail is going to be the end of your life and it's going to be the one reason you don't get ahead, then you're just going to feel
Mm-hmm.
defenseless and helpless. Like you're going to feel like you can't. Like it's just with everyone around you is saying that, right? And so that, and I want to actually ask you on your personal, with your personal experience, because you went through this.
Mm-hmm.
When you were 16 years old and you found out, and I know that you had to have this talk with your dad and your
Yeah.
mom, right?
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to tell us about how they reacted, but I want you to tell us about the mindset of the people around you at this time, the family members, the community that you were living in. Like, what was their feedback regarding your expected success?
Well, I remember I didn't tell my parents immediately. It took a while. And I was getting to a point where I think I told them until like 3 or 4 months,
Oh wow.
because I didn't know how. I didn't know how to approach them. And my mom was always the stricter parent, and I was scared. I was scared of her reaction. And my dad wasn't there all the time.
Yes,
So,
that's right.
so I eventually my dad came into town, and there had already been some rumors in the neighborhood. I guess maybe my boyfriend had mentioned something maybe to his relative or something, something happened where, rumors
Yes.
spread, and then it
Yeah.
came into the ears of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad actually was the one who asked me, let's go outside, let's have a talk, let's walk around the block, and I want to talk to you. So I kind of knew that if he wanted to talk to me, that it was for something serious. So I knew that I was worried that he may know the truth. And when we walked outside and were talking, he basically asked me, he told me he had heard rumors that I was pregnant, and he wanted to know if that was true. And
Wow.
that was kind of my opportunity. I couldn't lie to him, and I just I broke down, and I told him, yes, that I was pregnant. And it's seeing my dad's face, and like that was tough.
Yeah.
So, you could hear him, like, his sigh of, like, I can't imagine being on his end and, having to think about, your daughter and, where you think that she's taking on this big challenge, and you don't know how to help them, and he was very supportive. He said that whatever, I wanted, that whatever it is that I chose to do, that he would support it.
Okay.
But he did also think about abortion as an option.
He did.
Yeah, I mean, and he's like, maybe this will, help you get back on your feet, and you can continue going to college and pursuing, whatever it is that you want to pursue professionally. And, I was talking to him, and I said, you know what, Dad, I think that could be an option, So we both, I think, in that trying to support each other, we were finding the path of least resistance.
Exactly. Yeah. And he didn't want you to also go through this challenging experience that he knew you would go through of having a baby at 16 and having to be there for that baby. And he wanted, you to aspire to be so much more.
Right? Exactly. So he, in his way, that was his way of supporting me, and, once we got closer to the house, he's like, okay, well, you have to talk to your mom. And that was really the part I really dreaded, because I didn't know how she was going to react. And, when I went up to the house, and, he said, my mom's name is Liliana. So she's like, Liliana, your daughter needs to talk to you and needs to tell you something. I told her, Mom, I'm pregnant. And she completely started crying, and she started, like, she was upset, and she had so many emotions, like, how could you, we've talked to you about protecting yourself, and, this is like, you can't go back, like, how could you be so irresponsible? And, it was hard. It was hard to hear it. It was hard to hear it from my mom. It was hard to see her reaction and her getting upset and crying. It was like all these emotions at one time, she's crying, absolutely. She's upset, she's disappointed, and I'm helpless. I can't do anything at the moment about it.
Exactly.
And so
what was her decision, her final decision, when it came to?
We proposed the idea, my dad and I, right? We're like a tag team, like, hey, Dad and I were thinking that maybe I can go to Miami, and, maybe I can take care of this, in that way, and get an abortion, and then everything, I can go back to school, and everything's just back to normal. And my mom said, no, you're not.
You're not. Mm-mm. She says, you're taking responsibility.
Yep. She's like, you made these choices. You are going to be responsible, and you are not going to get rid of that baby.
Wow.
And I actually got upset.
Yeah.
Because I thought, how could she make that decision for me?
For you. Exactly.
Like, this is my body.
Mm-hmm.
And how could she purposefully make my life harder?
Exactly. Knowing it's going to be hard, having had 3 kids herself.
Yeah. Do
you know what her thinking behind that was?
I think she obviously values life, but I think it was about being responsible. I think it was about being accountable, being responsible. I don't think she felt that it was right, a right way to deal with life.
Yeah.
Like, in general, that you could just find an easy way out of things.
Okay. Yeah.
I think just the principle, I think a lot of things probably in her mind, but I genuinely think she wanted me to face my decisions.
Yes.
Head on.
And the thing is that, though, they were also ready to support you through it.
Well, that too. I mean, they obviously were going to be there for me. They said, listen, we're going to be here for you. You're not going to be abandoned. You know, we're going to support you in every way we can, and we're going to figure out a way to make this work.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. So
Because
that's really important.
yes, absolutely important. And it's what a lot of women don't get. And if anything, that's what adds to that statistic. But
Absolutely.
you had it. And so moving forward, I mean, you went through your pregnancy, you had the baby, but you also finished high school and you went on to do bigger and greater things. So can you tell us that experience? Like, how was it for you going through, trying to get that education, graduate, and get your life together, even being a young mother?
You know, going through the pregnancy was really hard. Um, I had to, you know, get out of the high school I was in because it was a co-ed high school, and you know, obviously they didn't accept, you know, pregnant young women in school.
They didn't
So
accept them.
no, it wasn't like it was. You know, at that time, my parents had put me in a private school, and it just wasn't, you know, something that just.
Yeah, they were trying to. It was taboo. They were
Yeah,
trying to shun
exactly.
it.
It was taboo, and I don't think other parents would be accepting of that either. You know, it's that whole thing, that whole stigma, and that
That
whole
shows.
thing of
Yeah.
society. You
Yep.
know, and so I had to retreat. You know, and I had to study at home. I had to go and buy, you know, books to study, and I had to go register and take the exams to pass high school at home, you know. So that was really hard because I see my sister, you know, going to school still, having fun with her friends or going out at night. And here I am, I'm pregnant. I have to study at home. I don't have a social life anymore. A lot of my friends who I thought were friends, their parents told them not to talk to me anymore.
Wow.
You know, I had a really close friend of mine, and her parent, and then she just, once I told them what was going on, that I was pregnant, she stopped talking to me.
Because they thought you were a bad example. It's
Exactly.
funny because they're probably all doing the same things that led you to get pregnant. But the only thing is that
That I got pregnant and it
you got
didn't.
pregnant and they didn't. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that was very hurtful. You know, I couldn't understand that. And that to me, when I needed support the most, I was getting a lot of rejection and people talking bad about me behind my back. You know, the neighborhood, you know, you could hear people like whispering, like, oh, you know, that poor girl, she's not gonna, her life is over, you know, she's not gonna finish high school, she's not gonna go to college. You know, I had even some family members, I had rifts with some family members because of it. And it was just, yes, just from a society standpoint, even when I would go to the nurse to get checked, you know, I would hear the nurses like even criticizing me in front of me, like, oh, this is what you get for playing house.
Wow.
You know. So yeah, so imagine, you know, you're
That's
going through
crazy.
this pregnancy. It
And it's
you know,
supposed to be a joyous moment. That's
that's
what
what
you
I was going
said.
to say. It was not a happy moment for me.
Yeah.
I couldn't really enjoy my pregnancy because of all of this pressure and
Yeah.
negativity. You know, people frowning upon me and talking about me and criticizing me. Like my choice to keep this baby and go through life with the baby was the end of the world.
Yeah. And they would probably judge you just as much if you decided to abort.
Yeah,
Oh.
probably. But you know what? The abortion is no. As long if I don't say anything, nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Exactly. But then you just have to deal with it for the
So
rest
I
of
have
your
to deal
life.
with it internally,
Yeah. In
right?
this time when you were dealing with this, with all of this noise around you, everybody talking about you, like, did you ever doubt that you would be able to get ahead? Did you believe that what they were saying? Because you were working on graduating for a reason, right?
Yeah,
To,
I wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted
hmm,
to prove everybody wrong. I said, I am not going to be a statistic. I'm going to show everyone, for everyone that's ever said anything bad about me, I am going to show them that I can do it, you know,
I
and
love that.
that was really what gave me the drive at that age to kind of push forward. You know, I still wanted to fulfill my promise to my parents that I would be a college graduate. and that I would someday be able to help them financially.
Absolutely. You had a bigger purpose, a bigger vision that you were focused on than everything else going on around you. And I love
Exactly.
that.
So it was a lot of willpower. It was hard, you know. But I was able to finish high school on time, like
Mhm.
everyone else.
Oh, wow.
And then my parents helped me a lot through that phase because, my mom, even though she was working, she was helping take care of, my daughter once my daughter was born, so that I could go to school part-time, right? Because I enrolled in college, and they helped support me with that. And I couldn't go full time like most people, but I could take 2 or 3 classes a semester. And, those days that I needed to go to school, my mom would help me by taking care of my baby.
And was that in Costa Rica?
I was in Costa Rica.
Okay, that was in Costa
Yeah.
Rica because you
Yeah.
did go to college. You continued that when you came back to the States, right?
Correct. Yeah, my sister had already graduated high school, and she had decided that she wanted to come back to the States because she thought there was better opportunities for her to get a job and go to college here. And so she had already left, and I could see that, she already had a job, and she already had a car, and she was going to Miami-Dade, or I think FIU at the time. And so I saw her kind of putting her life together in the States. And I was slowly but surely thinking that I could do that I could go over there and do that for myself and for my daughter. So I
And
did eventually decide to move back.
your daughter was 2 at the point when you decided that, right?
Yeah, she was 2 years old. And I had already done a couple of courses in architecture here in Costa Rica. And so I was able to take some of that back over there and get that validated. But it was hard. I had to pay to get my transcripts transcribed, and I had to go and take an SAT test, and do all these little like hurdles that I had to just to even register to school here. So I had to learn a lot of that by myself because my parents didn't know anything about the education system, you know?
Yeah, they didn't. And so you were 18 when that happened. You moved here and you were
Yep.
figuring everything out. And I know that there was something that happened that you were able to receive because you were such a hard worker. I mean, that's what that made me admire you because you didn't know you didn't know where to start either. I mean, you left this country when you were 12,
Yeah.
right? And then their opportunities over there are so different from over here. And
Hmm.
so the preparation, what you're taught at school, it's completely different. And then you
Absolutely.
come here and you're like, now what am I going to do? And it's just like, it's a little things here and there. You're doing admin work, whatever you could get your hands
Hmm.
on. But then there was that one opportunity that you got and you just ran with it. Can you tell us about that?
Well, obviously I had to learn to, have work ethic and things like that. So I did start doing the admin work, and I started working as a receptionist for a law firm. They were very supportive of me. I would take classes at night. I do the full time, and then at 5 o'clock I would drive an hour and a half of traffic to go to school. Sometimes I'd have to drive 2 hours because depending on the classes, I'd have to go to another campus. So yeah, it took a long time. It wasn't a fast process. And also I didn't, like I said before, I didn't know that there was programs or resources that could help me.
Yes. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was kind of doing this on my
The
own.
hardest way possible. So
Yeah.
you were working your full-time schedule
Hmm.
and you were taking classes, you said about 2 to 3 classes a semester because it
Yep.
was all you could do. And that was right after work.
Yeah.
Right? And you carry this out for how long?
Oh my gosh, I think for like 7 years,
Wow. So from 18
6 or 7 years.
to 25.
Yeah.
In the meantime, your daughter is growing up and you had family that was helping you with your daughter.
I did. And that's the other, like we've said
A
before, it's the
blessing.
family support. The family support. My grandmother was here. And so my grandmother would help me
Mm,
take care of her. They would pick her up after school for me. And then that's what allowed me to go to school after work. So,
incredible. That was a
so
lot of hard work.
yeah. And a lot of and the support, I
Yeah, the
needed that
support.
support because I look at other young women in my situation that may not have that support, and that could be a very um, limiting factor,
Yeah, very
on
discouraging.
yeah.
So you went through the 7 years and you progressed and you progressed and you progressed, and it was hard. And I'm sure you had many nights and you're like, oh my goodness, like this is too much. My daughter's crying over here. I'm not able to be there as much as I want to be.
I felt guilty for a long time. I felt guilty that I could not be this PTA mom that could go to the ceremonies, that could go do extracurricular activities. I didn't have that flexibility. I had to focus so much in school and I had to work. And for a long time, I felt bad about that, that I didn't have that time that other parents do to just spend quality time with their kids.
So my question to you is, what was it that kept you going? What was your reason for doing all of this?
It turned out now that it wasn't just to prove a point. It wasn't just to prove, it was for now my daughter. It was to give her a better quality of life,
I
you
love
know?
that.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't just about me anymore and proving people wrong and I can do this and helping my parents. Now we was now is more focused on my daughter, what I wanted to instill in her, how I wanted her to see me, and then what I wanted to be able to provide for her.
So your daughter changed your life in many ways.
Absolutely. She made me more responsible person, I had to struggle with that growing up with my mom and me trying to be a young adult, wanting to party and wanting to do all these things. And my mom, she was the one that kept me grounded. She was the one that would say, wait a minute, you can't do all of that. You have to remember, you have your daughter you have to think about, which was hard at that age. At
Yes.
21 years old, 22 years
Incredible.
old, it's a
That
struggle.
many people don't even know how to make a meal at
Exactly.
21 years old, to cook or to do their laundry.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
my mom was not, she wouldn't permit me to just go out and not, and, oh, leave my daughter behind, like she would always like, wait a minute, she did, she allowed me to go out sometimes,
Hmm.
but it wasn't like I could do whatever I want.
Exactly. But it was a learning process. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not, I don't think it's something that you'll immediately, and I'm sure that in the beginning it does change, because maybe at some points it's like, oh, this is important. It's my priority. And then other times you're like, but I really need a break. I really need
Oh
to go
yeah.
out, like it's,
Absolutely. You want to be young and you want to be,
yeah.
you're trying to navigate through life. I'm growing. I'm trying to learn about life too.
Yes.
I'm not an adult at
Which
this
is
point,
what you said about your daughter, is that you guys basically were able to grow together.
Yeah, I mean, and that's essentially what happened, We grew together. She can probably remember me doing homework and, going to school and, just the fact that she was there to see me graduate. That's something that a moment that I can actually share with her,
I love that. So
you
she
know.
saw you graduate. You graduated
Yes, I graduated.
after 7 years.
Yes. That
You got your degree. And what
that
was the degree in for you to
it
get?
it was in architecture.
In
I
architecture.
got a bachelor in architecture.
And you had that dream from when?
Oh my gosh, since I was like 10 years old.
10 years old. That was the
Yeah.
one thing that you wanted. And then
Yeah.
all of this happened. You moved. You were failing. You got pregnant.
Yeah.
You got ridiculed and doubted. And you pulled through.
And I did it.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
You're
It
so amazing.
it was
Wow.
it was incredible and it felt so amazing to be able to just be there and be the first in my family, to have a college education and to look at my parents and just thank them for everything that they did for me, because that's one of the main reasons why I was able to do that. And then also thank my mom for being that person to say, no, you can do this, and you can do this with your baby, you know? And that's why I was there graduating with my daughter at
Yes.
hand, because of her.
Yeah. You see, what I've noticed is that many times we doubt ourselves, and in those moments, we need someone who believes in us more than we believe in ourselves. And your
Absolutely.
mom was that for you, and your dad too.
Yeah.
Your immediate family was
Yeah.
that for you.
They
And so,
were. They were very supportive. My sister was very supportive. My brother, they have a very special bond with my daughter. You know, it's almost like like my mom sees her like a daughter. You know, and my mom and dad, both of them, and my brother and sister, they have been amazing aunts and uncles for her. Amazing. They have a very deep bond.
I'm so happy that you had this to get through what you were this hand that you were dealt, that anybody really, it could happen to anyone. It could happen to anyone. And the only difference is the choice of keeping the baby, right?
Hmm.
And trying to live with raising the baby, and also trying to do something out of your life still, which is, you've shown us, completely possible. But I want you to tell us, what is then your message to young mothers out there and their families, and why this message that you're saying, why does it matter?
You know, my message is for the young women that are in that situation, that may have just found out they're pregnant, or that may be pregnant and are going through these harsh moments where people are, you know, doubting them. Um, I want to be that example. I want to show them, because there's not that many examples out there of young women that have gone through this and that can say, hey, I did it and you can do it too. You know, and so I want to be that example for them, so that they can still continue having their dreams, continue aspiring, shooting for, you know, anything that they want to accomplish is still there. It's still possible. um, just because you're pregnant or you choose to have the baby does not mean that your life is over. Now, is it going to be easy? No, it's not going to be easy, but life isn't easy,
Yeah.
you know? And whether it's this or something else, you're going to come across another challenge in life, you
Yeah.
know? But I want them to feel inspired, and I want them to know that they can do it.
And a message to their families.
And the message to their families is that these girls need your support.
Absolutely.
These girls need your support. If you want them to really aspire to whatever it is that they want to do, you need to be their support. You know, you need to be their support, their strength. You need to provide them that strength. Because
Yeah.
right now they're scared. You know, they don't know how to handle the situation.
Yeah.
You know, they need that love. They need
Yeah.
that understanding. They need that encouragement. Because without those things, um, we're just going to be pressured to go another way.
Yeah. In a way that possibly is not the way we really want.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, and you know, I respect like women's choices, but I do want women to see that having the baby does not end in a negative way.
Yeah. It doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to, you
Yes.
know, and it's all really up to you,
Yeah.
you
And,
know.
and I think that's a great message, because what we've seen through your experience is that not only was it not only is it possible, but that support of the family, and the, your brother and sister, and just how everybody was there for you and then for your baby, how that played a big role, in having that be possible for you, and that you're now living this life that you've always dreamt of, which is an incredible thing. And so it's very important to tell people out there that it's possible, that, but also to the families, please support your children. Please support them, please respect them, because the emotions that you're probably dealing with, of disappointment, of doubt, of anger, of fear, your child is probably experiencing that 3 times, 4 times over.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And especially in that moment, where we think that there really is no hope.
Yeah.
Because I really did think that there was no hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So having that is critical. And I actually recently became in contact with a nonprofit organization called Our Mother's Home, and they're located in Fort Myers. And I didn't realize that there are programs, but this program, what I really like about this is that they are actually supporting young teen moms that are in the foster program.
Wow.
So these are young mothers that have no family. They have no support.
Wow.
So this organization helps these moms. They put them in, they have a home in Fort Myers that they let them stay in, and they let them stay in there with their babies. So they help them to, finish high school and potentially go to college.
That's incredible.
I'll
add that in the show notes to the information
yeah,
of this organization. Yeah.
And so I felt so, connected with them, because I feel, wow, these girls don't have the support that I had. They don't have a family. They don't have a mother and a father and a brother and a sister that are there rooting for them, supporting them, lifting them up. How could it be I can't even imagine how much harder their life is because of that. And so, to me, now I'm very passionate about supporting those type of organizations that are helping these young women that don't have that support that I had.
Absolutely. No, I believe that that's an incredible purpose and mission to get involved in those things. And that's beautiful that you do, because I mean, you're showing that on one side it is possible, but also just being there, being able to relate in that way of being young, being scared, feeling like there was no hope, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to connect with them and motivate them. I think that's beautiful for you to be a part of that. And Daisy, I want to thank you so much for being on here today and sharing your story and being completely open and honest about what you went through and the challenge that you experienced, but that you pulled through, and that you're sharing this example to the world that you can do this when presented with, being pregnant at an early age. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lori. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the platform to speak and to be able to share that with others. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So I'll get the information for the organization that you're talking about. Let me know if there's any other way that I can provide help, or that we can provide help as an audience. And I'll make sure that I can connect all of those pieces together. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right. Absolutely.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And to everybody else, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Until next time.
That concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, feel inspired, and would like to hear more, please subscribe to the Relentless Minds podcast via the link in the show notes, or visit lorijimenez.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.